What's up, everybody, and welcome to October, and welcome to another recording of the Z Rebels Technical Water Cooler event hosted by the System Z Enthusiast Discord. My name is Steven Perva, and I'd love to welcome you to this recording. You're going to love this recording. We had a conversation about AI and the huge announcement that IBM had made about the Telum 2 chip coming soon to the new Z machines. I'd encourage you to check out all kinds of fun stuff going on at the System Z Enthusiast Discord by going to discord.gg/SZE and getting yourself plugged in. I got to head off to go speak at Z-Day today, and I do want to encourage you to take a look at the Z-Day recordings if you're catching this after Z-Day, which I'm sure you will be. And while you're at it, head on over to dinoframe.io and check out all of the learning opportunities there for System Z, System I, and all sorts of really fun, exciting mainframe content. I hope you enjoyed this recording, and I hope to see you at our October 11th System Z Enthusiast Discord Z Rebels Technical Water Cooler event happening at 8 a.m. Central Time. Again, that's Friday, October 11th, 8 a.m. Central Time. Get plugged in at discord.gg/SZE, and we'll see you there. Take it easy.
Fire away.
Okay, cool. I'm going to pull up my notes here. And we're going to start since it's actually 8 o'clock. This is probably the first time we've ever started on time, folks. So that's good work for everybody. All right, welcome back, everybody, to the 7th live Z Rebels Technical Water Cooler. This is the 6th recorded. You all know what we're here for by now, but let's do those quick reminders that aren't actually quick at all. We're here to share ideas, challenges, and collaborate on where the industry needs to go. Last time, our big topic is what is the future of knowledge sharing in the mainframe event space. I'm going to be sharing some links to the previous sessions that we've done here as part of my quarterly reminder. Every 15 minutes, I try to send a reminder, and I forget almost every single time. So let's talk about rules. To keep our community hospitable and productive, let me remind you of those critical rules. So the first one is mutual respect. Do not disrespect other people in the chat or on voice. There's no tolerance for discriminatory statements on things like race, age, gender, disability, etc. Elitism, no good, obviously. Do not insult or belittle other people based on their opinions or preferences. There will be strong opinions here, and we all must respect that. Third, do not share any information that you're not able to share. That's things like intellectual property, topics under NDA, and anything else that you don't have the permission to share. Finally, every single one of us, unless they specifically call out otherwise, is simply representing themselves. Their views do not constitute the views of any organization and should only be considered their own. That's it for the rules, I think, and just a reminder, this session is being recorded as usual, and it will be posted to YouTube whenever I get around to captioning that, which is a pain in the rear. So if you don't want to be recorded, you're welcome to either obscure your identity, not speak, or just simply leave. This conversation isn't about what any individual here thinks. It's not about what I think. It's not about what Frank thinks or Rosalind or anybody up here on stage right now. It's about what we as a community want to talk about. So please do not hesitate to make your voice known. Introduce a question, maybe say something about a topic, or maybe just share a thought on any topical thing that you want once we open the floor for discussion. Anyone and everyone is welcome and eagerly invited to bring something to the table for this conversation. So the format of this water cooler goes like this. In a moment, we're going to open the floor for somebody to bring our first topic. And if y'all just sit there quietly, we're going to bring up something that's probably going to be boring. And then we as a group can start talking about it. If there's something you want to talk about, you can post that in the chat. I think I'm pointing at it. And you can click the little chat bubble icon somewhere on the interface. I think for me it was on the top right. There's also one on the left. You'll find it. And you can share your thoughts in the chat. If you want to share on stage, you're not required to be on video, but you are required to have voice in order to share on stage. So if you want to share on stage, there's a little hand icon. You can simply raise your hand and we'll bring you to the stage so you can share your thoughts. Once you say something, whatever point you want to make, or you participate in the discussion, we ask that you click the little button that has you step down from the stage, or one of us will step you down from the stage so that we have room for other people to hop in. There's only a finite amount of room here on the stage. But if you have something further to add and you've been removed from the stage or you've left the stage, just raise your hand. We'll bring you right on back up, and that will be great. Before we get into this, I do want to kind of have a brief rundown of the Re-IPL event that took place in Kansas City in August. So the first thing I want to do is say thank you to everybody who participated. I learned a lot, and I haven't had an opportunity to reflect on this event, and so I'm kind of reflecting here in real time. One thing that really struck out to me about Re-IPL, this is my first time hosting an event, and it was just a tiny little thing. And we had over 100 people collectively across the whole experience. We had 75 people that had turned up in person, at least for some period of time. And then we had a little bit over 35, maybe 40 folks that showed up virtually. So if you did participate in Re-IPL, you have my sincerest gratitude, and I am extremely thankful for that. One thing I did want to share was that the sense of community there was just absurd to me. And if you were there in person while I was setting up, you knew how much I needed community in that moment. I was frantically all over the place trying to get drop cords from one side of the room to another side of the room. And I had people that had no business helping me sitting there on the floor, taping things and just being helpful. And it was just an incredible testament to how we as a community can come together and make something tangible, something amazing happen. And that to me was the best part of Re-IPL, outside of sharing the insane conversations, eating the food that I barely got some of, but which was quite good. We had a few breakout sessions that had went, some virtual breakouts that took place, and I heard there was kind of a sneak breakout that happened that wasn't even on the agenda. So I think that's pretty amazing. That's kind of what we were after, was for people to collaborate. So that was fantastic. So thank you all so much. I know that some of you were curious about how it all went down. We had, in just terms of openness and transparency, we had spent $4,380.96 on things that were for the event specifically. This wasn't things that I could keep, like cables and all that fun stuff. And through the generosity of everybody that came together to help contribute to the event, we brought in $2,496.98. So that is a net loss, which is great, it's fine, of $1,883.98, which is maybe a month of a virtual ZOS instance in IBM Cloud, maybe close to a month of running one of those. So that was not so bad. It was well worth the cost of entry, in my opinion. So if you want to share your opinions about Re-IPL, the chat is a great place to do that. My call to action for all of you, if you were there or not, would be to please share your feedback with me and anybody else who took place in organizing Re-IPL. We'd love to kind of filter that into the next time we'd like to do an event like that. So without that feedback, it'll just be the same miserable experience that it may have been for you the last time around. So we want to improve, and we need your help to do that. So a special thank you to everybody. Is there any thoughts or anything about, I know that I see Frank and Rosalind here on stage. Both of you were there. Anything any of you want to share about it? It's a simple thumbs up, anything like that?
I think I will say it was wonderful. I think it was great to have the discussion. It was great to have newer people. I'm not supposed to use that word that I keep using, so I'll try not to use the word I keep trying to use. And it was great to have the discussion. So I really enjoyed it, and I really appreciated the fact that you made it so open to have people being able to share what they were really thinking.
I got to agree. And if the only negative, which is kind of personal, and actually I'd like to bring Darren up on stage as well, because he brought it up in the chat, was the breakout on mainframe skills that wound up going for over an hour. And I know also, Rosalind, you were in there as well. And I'm sorry I missed it because I was backing up Stephen, as he was running around, and I was following behind him in case he needed an extra hand. Um, but I think it was great. I also am very happy that you covered more than 50% of the costs on that. I wish I could help out, could help out more on that. Anyway, I still would like to have the the ReIPL volunteers sometime to have that offline debrief slash chat about it. And I think even maybe have a separate discussion for those who attended and just really get their feedback on it. Sometime next month. But
Yeah,
again, thank you very much, Stephen. Thank you very much.
yeah, I would say the only problem is that now you've set the bar at a certain level, and now we have to keep doing it. Um, the thing we really want to focus on, though, I think, is what are the essential pieces and what were the nice to have, but maybe not critical, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So, but yeah,
yeah.
we have to keep doing them. So sorry, Steve,
Yeah.
but we have to keep doing them, um, and
It,
deciding what that looks like going forward is going to be a thing.
yeah, I think actually the next shares location. I don't know, Stephen. You said really you didn't think you were going to do it. You were going to wait a year, and the fact that shares location for DC is outside of town, downriver on the Potomac, kind of self-contained. I think will help you a lot, to skip next time around. And then when we're in a city that cannot be named, but I do happen to know, that we can have, have ReIPL one, because as we know, we're computer people. We start with this was ReIPL 0 in Kansas City. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'd love to have them every share, but I know for you put in a ton of work on that, and I think you're going to have some. Uh, I'll say, sorry, a dedicated core. Hush, a dedicated core of people, and that's a good reason for me to mute.
I want to say I really liked how well the virtual part went. You managed to string together with duct tape, chewing gum, and baling wire, and it actually worked well. And we didn't feel left out or just kind of like you guys were in a fishbowl, we were sitting on the outside. Like there's actually collaboration. I think Mike Fulton did a great job of kind of leading his virtual breakout session, and there was a lot of simultaneous conversation. I almost feel jealous that I wasn't in the room with Rosalind and the gang, and I don't even know what the skills thing went on about because I was doing other stuff. So it was pretty neat, I have to say. So it went much better than I would have expected.
And so you should be jealous.
I heard the barbecue was to die for.
That was
Arthur
fantastic.
Bryant. It was Arthur Bryant. It was good stuff.
Yeah, that just I'll chime in and then I'll jump off the stage. Not in a bad way. The breakout room was fantastic. I mean, the whole event was just brilliant, and thank you for everyone that put that on. But being in the breakout room with Rosalind and the good doctor, just sort of managing things. I got to say, after 30 years of doing this, there were a number of youngsters in the room, early career mainframers, that said some stuff that was just one of those light bulb moments for me. There was absolute revelations. I mean, they openly, this was the thing I loved the most. They just openly said, okay, this is the lens that I look at the industry through. This is my experience. And some of it was, questions that I've been talking to senior mainframers and industry luminaries and stuff about for ages, and everyone's scratching their head saying, I really don't know. We can't know the answer to this. And these youngsters just spouted it out. This is my experience with the industry. Was fantastic having that meeting of the minds and just that open feel to the place. Anyway, I'm rambling on, but really a terrific event. If I could throw one little suggestion out there, we maybe want to, or you maybe want to control the messaging a little better leading up to it. There was a little bit of grumbling and rumbling around shares. Some people had completely the wrong idea of what it was and started to get their hackles up about what this thing was, and it's trying to take over from share, which I explained each time that no, that's not what it is at all. Excuse my voice. So just some sort of clear messaging about what it is and where it fits in with share, so that people aren't going to get their ire raised. And I'll shut up now. Sorry.
No, that's all good. I know that there's people that weren't there in the audience, so I do want to kind of pay respect to their time, because I do want us to get to a topic. So unless, Frank, do you have anything you want to add? You were sitting there silently, but
yeah, I have a bunch of thoughts, but they can wait. They can wait. Actually, I think Darren had a topic that he wanted to bring up that he mentioned on the chat. So I thought maybe he'd want to.
If any of the great minds on here could chat. Obviously, the big news this week was the Tellum 2 process that'll be coming out soonish. And look at Rosalind's all excited. And who could tell us better about it than you, Rosalind? If you could tell us a little bit about that, and what you can, obviously, because there's no NDAs on this call, but it's incredibly exciting, and just is IBM continuing to lead the way, which always makes me want to slap people about when they talk about dinosaurs and IBM being an old technology and stuff like that. I mean, this is just cutting edge stuff. So if you can chat about what you can tell us about that, I just think it's exciting, and hearing it from you means there's other stuff that I can chat to people about when I'm telling people about it, what's coming.
I mean, there may be others on this call who know more about it than I do. I have to admit, I've been researching it a lot because I, 1, want to use it, 2, really want to use it, 3, wanted to use it before, and 4, I'm going to go talk to a bunch of students about it next week. So I think there's a whole bunch externally available about the announcement, and from the easy boil down, it's, hey, I can run large language models on my ZBox with my traditional AI, and here I go. What do I need all those GPUs in the cloud for? I mean, that's the way I mean, not totally true. Not totally true. I get it. I get the things I'm going to run other places. I know you're going to train language models other places. Yeah, I get that. But if you think about what Z does and the financial transactions and all that, and if you think about the, I can run my Linux workload there, I can run all sorts of things there. It just brings up the possibilities, and that's why I'm celebrating.
Nice. I see you've hopped aboard the stage, Jim. If you can give it a go, let's see if you're working out.
Sure. Is this working?
Absolutely. Yep. Welcome.
All right. Thanks. So I've been working with the ZVM community, and one of the hypotheses that they have is that with this, especially with the new Tellum 2 chip, that going back to the old school server consolidation play TCO story, is that this might be a great place to replace a gazillion pizza boxes with NVIDIA chips, by co-locating all that AI stuff on Linux in a ZVM or a KVM environment. Yeah, no prejudice there, but thank you for both laughing. But anyways, this might be a really interesting play. I haven't seen anything from IBM about that specific thing, but I can imagine doing all kinds of takeouts from third parties, on the x86 side toward this direction. So I'm encouraged. I'm starting to do some prototyping, and we'll see where it goes.
Nice. That was weird. Rosalind's little bubble thing happen. Did you see that? When you
Yeah.
did a thumbs up, it made a little bubble.
That's just what happens on the machine now if you don't turn off the expressions. So, I can cause all sorts of things to happen.
Speaking of AI,
We try not to encourage her, okay? Jeez.
I couldn't help it. It was fascinating to me. Oh, jeez. Oh, gosh. All right. So the Tell 'em 2, changing the world. That's awesome. Is there any? Go ahead, Ray.
I just have to say that, I remember the days when, you basically had to be blessed at a TDT. Remember when we actually met in person, this is what's coming. This is what's coming. And now, for both the Tell 'em and now the Tell 'em 2, the past 3 years, IBM is coming out there and say, hey, look, world, this is what's coming. And they're doing it at the hardware level. And I think it's a great change in direction on how IBM treats their new processors. I mean, yeah, there's still a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, but the fact and to do it at a well-known and respected conference down the 130 miles down the road here from me, I think it's fantastic, and kudos to whoever in IBM came up with this and sold it to the C-level and, saw it through. That's it. Anybody else got anything to say on it?
So I have a question. I guess understanding what the impact of the Tell 'em in and of itself was on the industry. I would hazard that most of us DOS dorks probably didn't really see or feel anything different, right? Like, I'm sure that performance people and the folks that were in the guts of it all were just like, oh, this is amazing, or something like that. I am curious, because if you're the average person like me, you can kind of swap the box out from underneath me and I wouldn't know none the wiser, because ISPF looks like ISPF, and it's sure that's a COS thing, but like, I'm not really paying attention to all of those finer details. So like, how can the average person kind of understand what this means for them, the average systems programmer or something like that? Like, where are they going to feel this impact?
In the Z6, actually, I don't remember when it came out. There's some more AI in automation, so system automation, etc., and there will be more of that being embedded in, but that's more traditional AI. I mean, Rosalind's biased opinion. Traditional AI provides a lot of value and known answers. It is a very valuable thing that needs to be used more. It's already being used in machine in fraud detection because of the Z16 and the ability with the AI U-trip, so you could do it in line. Large language models are something we're going to have to learn to deal with, in the fact of the hallucinations and the hallucinations. That's a nice way of putting it, or outright lying, but whatever, however you want to put it, we have to deal with that. And so I think large language models provide a lot of value, but we have to understand what they do, how they do it, understand the data that goes into them to make sure that it's not stolen data, etc. So I think this box will add, I would assume IBM would add more AI into the system programmer world too. So it makes it easier for you. At least I hope so. That's what I'm hoping for, making automation easier.
That was part of the run up with ZOS 3.1, was the introduction of AI into various things. And one of the things too is that they're really trying to put stuff into WLM and JES 2 scheduling, trying to draw on the models. But I'm glad you actually talked about the input into the models, because that, I think, is a huge problem. Those of us that learned our programming at a certain age, like me, um, remember the old term GIGO: garbage in, garbage out. If you train your LLM on thousands of subreddits, you're going to get, you know, garbage in and it's putting garbage out. And we have to, not only do we have to train on the right type of data, but it needs to be respectable. It needs to, I'll say general. You cannot, so you can't feed it a bunch of subreddit information, because that's how bad things that you see there get more exposed to the world.
Yeah, I
And
think.
yeah,
Oh,
go ahead.
Sorry.
No,
I thought
go
you were.
ahead.
But like, to piggyback off what you're saying here, like, one of the important tenets of, I'm going to say, ethical AI stuff is you actually have to prove how you actually got the answer to begin with, right? To be able to show how it made that logic happen, and if you're just scanning through Reddit, that's not a good example of like being able to prove where you got the information from. Microsoft tried something at one point where they had a bot just scan through, I think it was Reddit, and they
Tay.
allowed it to start, and then it
Yeah,
was
Tay.
racist things
Within
afterwards,
4 hours.
because internet happened. And so it's important also. It's not just for the fact that it can give inappropriate answers, but it could just lead down a path where it could give answers that are so incorrect that you could be doing something incorrectly with your results, right? And from both sides of the coin, it's important to understand that there are side effects of improperly trained models. So you have to be able to show how you got there in order to make sure that your model is actually a well-trained, properly effective model.
Let me try and add to that if I could. That I'm in an open mainframe project around AI and large language models. One of the things we're looking at is how do we get all the red books installed? I've already reached out to them and they seem willing. I know they're trying to do the same thing with Watson Code extension, but your topics here about how do we put educational materials, how do we, make that more available? That's the kind of stuff you want to input into these models. So it's not garbage, it's something that's been useful, has helped, and let's keep going, on that kind of topic. But we need to feed this. And so I am looking at, there's the, can we do this for pay, which maybe IBM wants to do, but can we do this for the community, which is what Open Mainframe Project wants to do? I don't see them at odds, because this is all about a great one for IBM. This is a great annuity stream having this mainframe, but tremendously, it's got so much value. But the problem is it's confined to this audience. Somebody used the term, it's an echo chamber, to boldly go where we've already gone before. And how do we how do we expand that to a broader community? So these are all things that I think can be helpful.
Well, and I think there's more than just documentation, right? I mean, I can easily imagine that a good AI tool that is trained not only um, on best practices, but what's happening on the system, being able to take events on the system and start to predict based on history, right, would be an awesome tool. 90% of Assist Prog's time is problem solving. If I can use AI to cut the time in half, that's a huge savings of time and gives a person an opportunity to do things besides fight fires.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. I was just trying to use that one on the large language model is around, to me, the educational aspect in some regards, but also, things like Z chat ops, which is, again, it's hyping an IBM thing, but it gives you an ability to query problems, bring stuff up. But then we're doing all kinds of metrics work along the lines that you're talking about so that we can look for aberrant behaviors around metrics. I know the other vendors are doing it too. So that's going to change the world as well. And it's not about observability. I don't want to look, it's nice to be able to look at a graph, but crap, I don't want to look at a graph 100 times a day. I want you to
Right.
tell me what to do as a result. So, again, the IBM mantra: detect, decide, act. Tell me about act, and then ultimately get to the point where you automate act. So I don't even have to get involved if it's like WLM when that first came out. People were used to SRM, and they didn't trust it that WLM would do the right thing. So for the first couple of years, you had to approve it. Now WLM is a staple. That's an AI engine of sorts that's already there, and it's going to continue to get better. But you want to get to the point that you can trust it and just take automatic action. But more work has to be done around that. But it's happening.
Yeah, I will put I don't disagree, and I think it's important, and ACT is important with a small caveat. We can't have AI making decisions that humans should be making. So automated operations and having it react to a problem, yes, let's get to the point where it can solve problems out of disk space, out of file system space, out of PDS's drive, whatever. Yes, WLM, but we have to have AI that's trustworthy in order to get there and make sure we're doing it appropriately. But since AI is being used in lots of forms, let's remember that a human needs to be the one making the decision. Sorry, I'm going to put my ethics hat on here and say we need to remember that there are things AI should decide. Fixing file system space, restarting something, whatever. There are things we can do. They're programming, and actually, you could program to do that. So it's not that AI just makes it better, faster. AI can identify things faster, hopefully. But let's also keep in mind as we bring AI into the system that true decision making that results in impacts to people, we need to make sure that we're not delegating to AI.
Yeah, but it would be good to follow kind of that naval I intend model, right? So that it's a partnership with a human as opposed to, mother may I all the time.
I just dropped a link in the chat. A friend of mine, Dr. Jen Goldbeck, who's at University of Maryland, did a TED talk recently on really kind of the unfortunate part and the hype and the outright scamminess that's a lot of the current AI speak from the tech industry. And it's just something I think we're going to have to good uses of AI. Like, for example, I'll say, I was talking yesterday with somebody about business processes and really, okay, helping identify fraud, which I remember that was one of the pushes that was during the Z16 launch, was that make it easier for financial institutions to possibly, to spot possible fraud, really is what it is. And I think what the messaging really needs to be is AI can help pinpoint those things that need to be investigated. But Rosalind, again, you're right. And there's that viral slide that's theoretically from an IBM presentation sometime in the 70s that basically says a computer should never make a decision that a human should be making. And that's really the messaging that needs to be driven about over this. Anyway,
I know that Colo Steve, which is the co-located version of me, joined the stage some time ago. Didn't have a chance to say anything. I don't know if you have something you'd like to add to the conversation. We'll make a little space for you.
Sure. I'll bring something up. The well, I actually have a question first. Is the Telum processor being used in any of the other IBM product lines, or is it strictly going into the mainframe line, to the best of your knowledge?
That's for anybody but me. I wouldn't know. I'm assuming it's just a Z thing.
I was
a
under the impression
Z.
it's just the name of the Z processor. Like that's just what
Yeah,
we're calling it.
Yeah, it's just the Z chip. Although I do think some of the technology maybe have been ported over into other lines, like some IBM I stuff, but not at the level that it's integrated with IBM Z.
I
Okay.
just think Telum is the first time we stuck a brand name on the processor, because I was asking one of the hardware guys about this in the past, and he's like, oh, it was just like the Z13 processor in the Z13 mainframe. And it's like, oh, really? Okay. I mean, we had cool code names of the chips and stuff like that, but those aren't publicized. So I think it's the first time we've got a real marketing name for the actual, like, CPU.
But this has been kind of a trend for the platform for a while, right? Is, hey, we need to really provide specialized capabilities to make the platform really sing. And the important thing about Telum, and maybe everybody already knows this, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating stuff, is that we didn't just get a bunch of hardware guys together to say, what should we put here? There was a work from developers across the stack. We had hardware people, we had OS people, we had middleware people, and app people to really design what we thought needed to happen. So it wasn't just a bunch of hardware geeks getting together and saying, I'm going to make these inference engines work better. There was a lot of across the environment interaction to make this work, and I think it's harder to make that appropriate across every platform.
Yeah, and I might be off base. I haven't done any. I thought the Telum was like a co-processor in the Z16. It wasn't the main processor. It was just a
Yes.
AI
the main.
instruction set that if you use certain instructions, it handed it off to the Telum processor to do that work.
Yeah.
It had the AIU and whatever, but the Telum processor was the main processor. We have the Fire, maybe is the name of the thing that lets us run large language models next to the Telum processor. But yeah, Spire, I think. I don't know, somebody will pronounce it correctly. It's the one that'll run the large language models.
Okay. The other comment I had, and I forget the vendor, I could probably dig it up, but I've gone to a couple of vendor presentations, and I think this is an interesting idea, and I know people are going to say, oh no, not ChatGPT, but this one particular vendor is developing into their product line. It's a security product. I think it ties into like encryption and stuff like that. The ability where you can optionally, if this is kind of a web-based application. If there's a message or there's a field on the screen where you want additional information, you can, like hover over the section of the web page and it'll pop up whatever, maybe a one-liner or something like that. But then optionally, you can say, maybe in the presentation I saw, they might be talking about AES 256, and somebody might say, well, they don't know anything about what AES 256 is, and then they can click a second button that would launch into, they're building a chat GPT interface that then would launch in and give you a much more in-depth description of what AES 256 encryption is. So I'd be interested in IBM, and again, I'm not asking them to adopt Chat GPT, whatever they want to coin it as, but we deal with so many different products and subsystems and kicks and DB2, and IMS and ZOS and, the messages manual and the system codes to be able to very quickly, it's not just for the systems folks, this would be for the application folks as well, is to be able to quickly, I don't know, look at a JCL listing and a GUI interface or something like that would then, or a web interface that would then say, oh, you want more information about that message? Then just click on this little button and we'll go over here and we'll give you a more in-depth, rather than having to go chase down a manual or something like that, or dig in, quick ref is kind of nice, but this would, I think, be even a step above, anything that we've got out there right now.
Watson Assistant for Z is intended to do that, in the sense it is intended to allow people to ask questions about IBM's docs, etc. We have indexed all the docs, all the IBM documentation, etc., for use in the chat with IBM. There are multiple places, support chat, etc., and it's being used in Watson Assistant. I got to get the name right for Z, to let people do exactly what you're asking, ask questions about what something's doing, and Watson Code Assistant helps you with the code part.
Okay.
So in it, yes, we have Watson, and we are using the Granite model. And sorry, small advertisement. Granite's wonderful because it's open source, and you can go look and you can go see all the data that went into it. And IBM has I can't say the word for the models. Thank you. Yeah, whatever.
I live but to serve you.
Yeah. So the Granite models are worth looking at. I had this conversation last week at a conference, and people were like, wait a minute, what? It's fully open? And it is fully open. So take a look at all the data that went into Granite. Granite is fully open. Take a look. That's a good thing.
And do they have like a cloud-based model where instead of having it installed on your local system, you can just have it connect securely, obviously, over to some sort of cloud-based usage of it?
Somebody who's in product development is going to have to answer the question about its SaaS version and its on-prem version. I know there's an on-prem version because people keep asking about it, but I thought there was a SaaS version. But I know our support channel and our the chatbots that we have actually have all the product documentation buried in them too. But somebody else can answer the question that would know. And yes, it's Watson X that uses Granite, but you can use Granite in lots of other ways.
So there's a lot of, this is a really exciting conversation around the Teleb 2 announcement, and then a lot of AI fun stuff. I know that there's, David, I think you're going to change the subject here. I didn't want anyone to feel like we're not considerate about the AI topic, but I don't know if you were planning to change the topic on behalf of Mr. Joe Winchester.
I was going to do that. I was waiting for a natural segue, but you did it for me, so I appreciate it.
That was far from natural. I just segued. I just cut the tape.
Insane. Yeah, I got you. Okay, so this is actually a topic that Joe Winchester and I and some other folks from IBM have been talking internally about a little bit on Frank's calls. So the question that or the topic that Joe wanted to brought up was he wanted to know what additional REST APIs folks want exposed over and above what ZOSMF currently has, such as do they want RACF, more Unix profile information, like what other things do you think people would actually want access to in order to gain some kind of API access?
I think this is a great topic. Thank you, Joe, and thank you, David, for kind of bridging the gap where Joe couldn't find what to tap on to get onto the stage here. I appreciate that. This is something I'm going to get a little philosophical on just for a second. I think that the heart of what Joe's question is really critical for all of us, kind of changing and evolving how we interact with ZOS today. What I would like to encourage people to do now, and with respect to this question, is understand that, like, we kind of have this weird gap right now. We have this set of folks who are new generation systems programmers, I guess, since we're talking about ZOS and math, and then we have this generation of people who already know how to do everything that they want to do, or at least they believe they know how to do everything that they want to do, right? And what we're finding is that the people who don't know what they want to do aren't asking for things like Joe is suggesting here, like, oh, I need a new REST API to do this. And the reason I believe for that is because people say, well, no, you don't need a REST API for this. Just fire up these panels and do that. What I would like to encourage people to do is take this as an opportunity to say, I would love a different way to do it. And for me, Joe, you pointed one out here is RACF administration, right? The RACF panels are the RACF panels. I love to use the RACF ADM piece of open source software that Lionel Dyke has written alongside a few others. That's a great tool. And I use that almost every single day. But I would love to see something like RACF ADM in ZOSMF, wrap it up with a bunch of REST APIs and all kinds of fun stuff like that. So don't hesitate to ask for things that you want.
I just want to add something to that. If you don't feel comfortable doing it here, if you don't feel comfortable even putting it in the chat, you can always reach out to a bunch of us here through DM or email or whatever, because this is a really important topic. And maybe you haven't thought of it today, but tomorrow, well, probably not tomorrow because you're probably not going to work on the weekend, but Monday or Tuesday, you go, I just wish I had, right? Because this is a long-term question. This isn't just, hey, we've got 15 minutes out of an hour call to come up with the coolest things I need. This is a really important topic. And we really want to get people embracing, if only it worked this way. Because a lot of us, people who are closer to retirement, we don't necessarily see the world the same way, and we're very used to the way we do things. So take advantage, not just in the next 15 minutes, but longer term. If you're not sure who to reach out to, you can always send me a message or send me an email, right?
Yeah, and to second that, I'm perfectly happy to take credit for your ideas. So if you want to send it to me, and make it so that you weren't the one that vocalized it, I'm happy to pretend that I came up with the idea for you. That's fine. I'm kidding, but like at the same time, if you actually if you want to be kept anonymous, I'm happy to be your anonymous spokesperson. So don't feel I'm kidding, but really kind of not at the same time. So I'm trying to make it so you feel free to do whatever you need to do.
Yep.
I think one area that personally I think so kind of sticking with a more philosophical kind of approach for this of being what abstraction is needed, whatever kind of different way of operating or interacting with the system. I would love a much cleaner way of just doing standard data set creation processes, right? So having something that just says, I just want a data set. I don't want to have to think about the 47,000 different variations of everything that has to go in there. I don't want to have to think about the articles. I don't want to think about. I just want to be able to say, give me a data set that does what I need to do.
I had since we brought up RACF administration, can you guys hear me all right?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so since we brought up RACF administration, so the last place I worked, we had, if you think about help desk that's doing password resets, we had a custom process that was a COBOL program that was exposed through ZOS Connect that tied into our ServiceNow Easy Vista tickets that, we automated that process. But there was some architecting that we had to do in order to do that. Beforehand, just help desk would, sign on to a TN3270 screen, and that's the only time that they would ever log on to the mainframe to reset passwords. So I'm a big fan of, RACF administration, specifically, you know, uh, lower level accounts. Um, Having a REST API to do something like that would make things a lot easier, just from a help desk end user, tying it into already automation that is already there. So
Yeah, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up one of my pet projects, PyRACF, um, which is a tool that's out in the OMP, the Ambitus under the Ambitus project, um, to do kind of automation of a lot of these kind of standard RACF tasks. I know that Rosalind's team has made some pretty ample use of the tool, and they hardly ever complain. So I'm pretty sure that it works fairly well. I think you're going to see soon that will not be just Python oriented. Imagine being able to use um, come on, a JavaScript, Node, and being able to manage all that stuff from a Node environment. So the opportunity is pretty broad, and I want people to think not just of, hey, if I had REST, but what are some of the other protocols that you're going to want to be able um, to leverage, right? So it's really easy to get caught into traditional thinking here. And I'd like to be able to support multiple languages. I'd like to be able to support multiple protocols. I want us to have the kind of flexibility that we really haven't focused on in the last couple of years, right? We're really getting to a point where we can do some pretty cool stuff if we get people telling us that that's what they need.
Yeah, there's a lot of conversation going on in the chat right now. Most people trying to solve Joe Winchester's inability to tap on the little button. But Pradipta here, he's a friend of mine and colleague of mine, says, how do I sell to adapt ZOSMF and new gen tools to decision makers, aka experienced folks, above other in-house tools, which may get non-serviceable in a few years for various reasons? He's suggesting, do we just possibly highlight all of the great new features? I think that can people kind of attack that problem? That's one that kind of we all kind of wrestle with, right? We have a million homegrown ways to do whatever, right? This is DevOps has this problem. Oh, when we develop a program, we have a bespoke tool chain that we do to compile and deploy and do all this fun stuff. So how do you surmount that like technical debt in favor of something that resonates more with you? Anybody?
Well, you just
I will.
Oh, I didn't. That was one question.
I'm going to put a hat on as CIO-ish. I need to be able to bring in the next generation. So I need to do it in a new way that they want. And so that's one thing. Two thing is the comment is that nobody's going to be able to support these old things after a while because, yeah, whatever, different conversation. I might argue that actually they could because language is just a language and anybody can learn a language, but different discussion. We need to be less tied to specific tools and languages actually, and more focused on building blocks. So we built these monolithic tools that did things. No, I need a building block that does X so I can use it in my pipeline. So I can use it letting the help desk call, using an orchestrator to call the reset password. I need building blocks in languages that people know. And I actually don't, Rex is okay, but new people don't know it as well. So Python, they know it, but we can't be too, I mean, I'm pushing Python. I'm going to keep pushing Python, yes, but we can't actually be too tied to language or tool or whatever, because it changes. So building blocks that can be reused makes it a lot easier to live with the fact that pipelines change and tools change and automation changes.
Yeah, the cool tool of today is the old busted tool of tomorrow, right? So the thing that I've been really pushing internally is, if I create a bunch of building blocks, I want those building blocks right now to be in Python. I want them to speak to the lower level infrastructure using a JSON payload, so that I have a standard way of putting things in and out. And then if I need to change languages, if it's a C interface, all modern languages have a C connector. So if you decide in a couple of years, I don't want to use Python, I want to use Rust or Go or Gesorgenflots, I don't care. It doesn't matter, because I can just make that switch, right? And as long as I create these building blocks, and what I want the building blocks to do is to be very task oriented. So do this specific atomic task. Then my pipeline or whatever orchestrator becomes I do this task, I do that task, I do. And so it makes it much easier for us to make changes and to pivot, because we have to be able to pivot in a way that we've never done in the past.
I agree, and I like the trolling going on in the chat about these amazing languages that we should be using, including Prolog, APL, etc.
Well,
Perl.
This is I'm surprised that we don't have this is a Tabari Frank argument, because I say APL and then he talks about a really, really dumb programming language. I can't remember what it is.
So
He
there
just
we
wanted
go.
up on
At least you can
stage.
type Lisp with a regular keyboard. You don't need all those fancy Space Cadet keys.
Yeah, so the reason I said Prolog was actually kind of funny. There's a book, 7 Languages in 7 Weeks, and I was looking at it, and actually it includes Prolog as an example of a language. So it's
Prolog
I remember
was
Prolog.
my first job in IBM was a tester for IBM Prolog. That was the very first job I had in IBM.
So we're down to a little less than 5 minutes here. I do want to kind of, as I normally do, either kill the conversation or make space for a new conversation. Any last minute questions, comments, or anything that people would like to kind of switch context over to? Now is your chance.
I'll just say Joe actually has advertised the Zoe ZOS MF REST API call on September 19th. Just kind of to talk about this more, it sounds like. So I would say interested parties, keep an eye on Joe's LinkedIn feed, because I'm sure he'll be sharing it there. Alas, I won't be there. I will be at Puppy Fall Camp.
Perfect. That sounds great. Winnie, join the stage. Winnie, what's up?
Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm a new systems programmer, and I just joined my team about 2 weeks ago, but whenever I'm in meetings, I still don't understand the lick of what they're talking about. So my question is, how long did it take you guys to get comfortable in your positions?
Who says we're comfortable?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. But
I don't know what I'm doing.
I mean, it honestly, it'll take time, but you'll start picking up hints here and there, and I would say if it's a welcoming team, feel free to say, "Hey, what is that?" And if you want to, and if you're afraid of the meeting doubling in length, just go up to your colleague afterward and just ask.
Well, reach out to this community. The value of this community is that we're all here to support each other. That's the key of what we do here, right?
There have been some great conversations in different spots in the past week that I'm absolutely loving. And I've even thrown the comment out there. It says, hey, that's why we have this community.
I like
Can
Tamari's comment
somebody
about
post?
acronyms. Oh, sorry, Rosalind. Go ahead.
Can somebody post Wikipedia? I can't find the link quick.
I thought it was funny as a new hire. I didn't know what these acronyms meant either. And I would go ask people, can you define that for me? And then the room would get real quiet and they'd start looking at each other. It's like, we know what it is, but I don't think we know what the letters mean anymore. It's like one of those things that's lost to the mists of time and the dustbin of history. So,
I mean, at the end of the day, as a new hire, you want continuous learning. Don't be afraid to experiment. You're going to break stuff. Don't worry about breaking stuff. We've all broken stuff. God knows if I told you some of the things I did as an early systems programmer, you guys would be flipping out. And I paid dearly for it.
I crashed.
You have a sandbox to break those mistakes.
Exactly.
That's all.
Exactly.
I remember my first job, they gave me a MVS initialization and tuning. They'd read it and upgrade to MVS XA for us.
Yeah, Winnie, I think it's awesome that you're 2 weeks in and you've already found this community. If I could give any advice, when you have kind of like your weekly stand-up meetings with your teams, just take notes. Even just take notes of like status updates and things like that. So then you're just writing it down. So then you'll pick it up a little quicker, kind of what projects are going on. And then you'll be able to go back and ask your teammates and be like, hey, you mentioned this in the team meeting, kind of, what does this mean? Or what are you working on here? Like things like that. So I think that's a good way. Even if you could just get into the habit of taking notes, definitely, because there are a lot of people who know how to do everything off the top of your head, and just volunteer to be like, hey, can you walk me through this so I can make documentation for it? Because that helps me too. So that would be my advice. So happy to have you in this community. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. So it is now 9 o'clock, and I think we closed on a really strong note. I'm still trying to recover from whatever Sean just did to make his name flood the chat. Seriously, thank you everybody for being here. I am going to end the stage now. We had a lot of fantastic new speakers, and for that I am extremely grateful. We have all kinds of amazing stuff happening on the left. We'd love for you to be here more than just during the event. As mentioned, lots of channels. Please get plugged in. If you don't know how to get plugged in, or you have those ZOSMF recommendations that we can take credit for, like David had mentioned, please just send one of us a message. Find us on LinkedIn if you can't figure out this Discord stuff, and we'll get you sorted out. Thank y'all so much for being here, and I hope that you have an amazing weekend. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Holiday.
Yeah. Have a nice long weekend.